Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It's one of the major drivers of economic activity in San Diego, and spending is up. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. We're talking about defense spending. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer breaks down the numbers in a new report and the impact on our region.
Almost 20,000 new jobs in San Diego this year can be traced to defense contracts. That's according to the annual San Diego Military Economic Impact Report. The report comes from the Rady School of Management at UC San Diego. It's sponsored by the San Diego Military Advisory Council, a nonprofit that promotes the economic benefits of military activity in the region. Michael Meyer is the UC San Diego professor who leads the team behind the report. He says more than 4 years after the pandemic disruption, 2024 shows a readjustment.
This represents a solid return to a pattern of normal for us.
He says that means much less emergency spending. Instead, much of the more than $40 billion spent in San Diego is on things like maintenance on military bases. That's an increase of almost $4 billion from last year. The report also highlights San Diego as a hub for defense industry innovation and startups, specifically drone and artificial intelligence. Democrat Sarah Jacobs sits on the Armed Services Committee in Congress. She says she's glad to see that part of San Diego highlighted in the report.
San Diego is really at the forefront of innovation in the defense sector, and I think it's only becoming increasingly more important.
As a member of the Armed Services Committee, each year Jacobs and her colleagues decide where the military spends its money. She says this year she helped get a large pay raise in the bill for service members.
One of the things I'm really excited about in this year's NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, is that we were able to get a 12% pay increase for service members, for enlisted service members. This is to help close the gap between enlisted service members and officers.
One notable absence from today's news conference, former SDMAC CEO Rear Admiral Mark Baumert. Baumert stepped down from that job earlier this year. He died last month. Baumert was a fixture in the military community and someone whose voice you've heard on KPBS as the CEO of SDMAC the last 6 years. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Starting today, thousands of California healthcare workers, including technicians, housekeeping, and food service workers, will get a minimum wage increase. KPBS Health reporter Heidi DeMarco says the law behind it aims to address worker shortages, reduce turnover, and improve patient care.
Last October, Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law gradually raising pay for the state's lowest paid healthcare workers to $25 an hour. The timeline varies by the type of employer and size. The law covers all clinical and non-clinical staff supporting patient care.
So this law affects healthcare workers in most large healthcare industries like hospitals, physicians' offices, clinics, home health agencies.
Laura Lucia is one of the authors of a UC Berkeley Labor Center report that shows 3 out of 4 workers benefiting from Senate Bill 525 are women and people of color, and nearly half are Latino. She says the law is designed to reduce reliance on public aid.
We estimated that nearly half of low-wage healthcare workers are enrolled in a public safety net program, or their family members are enrolled, which just underscores how low some of these wages have been.
Researchers say part of what the wage increase is trying to address is future healthcare needs.
We have to build the infrastructure now to make sure that there are nurses' aides and home healthcare workers and all the various people that help take care of the elderly. And that's going to be a growing problem as the baby boomers get older, retire, and so forth.
Research links higher pay, lower turnover, and better staffing levels to improved patient care. UC San Diego political economist John Alquist says it will take time to see the impact.
I doubt you'll see any immediate changes in quality of care or accessibility to doctors or nurse practitioners or other health service providers.
Alquist says the rollout of this law caused confusion. Some employers provided raises by the original June 1st deadline. Others will start the pay boost today. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Well, happy Wednesday, everyone. Your headlines here as we head into the weekend. I am tracking lots of sunshine. We'll see some cloudy starts with some sunny afternoons here for us. Warm highs, but yes, some cool lows. In fact, some areas could see the coolest weather we've seen so far this season as we head into the weekend. And then after that, I will be tracking our next chance of rain. The chance is low, but it is there. I'll detail that coming up.
The operator of the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant is responding to a lawsuit from Imperial Beach residents. The suit claims Violia Water North America has been negligent, resulting in 1 billion gallons of raw sewage flowing into the Pacific over the last 5 years. The suit seeks an immediate solution along with unspecified financial compensation for IB residents. Today, Violia responded, saying the allegations are meritless and that it's done its best to help operate the plant in the face of increasingly challenging circumstances. The company also says the odors are caused by uncontrolled sewage flows from Tijuana, and much of that sewage never even enters the plant. San Diego City Council this week passed a new code of conduct for the city's boards and commissions. KPBS's Scott Rod says the council rejected a more restrictive set of rules put forward by the mayor's office.
The city of San Diego has dozens of boards and commissions made up of volunteer members. They provide guidance on a range of topics, from policing to housing to historical buildings. The new code of conduct promotes being respectful and professional. Mayor Todd Gloria's office drafted the code of conduct and originally pushed for more restrictions on board members. The initial proposal would have prohibited members from publicly criticizing any city employees, including elected leaders. The mayor's office also wanted to have prior review of board members' communications with the press. The city council struck down both of these proposals following reporting by KPBS. Here's council president Sean Elo Rivera.
We definitely heard from enough folks who participate on boards and commissions that they were fearful that they were going to not be able to express their opinions.
The amendments came as a relief to Kelly Linden. She serves on San Diego's Climate Advisory Board.
I think it strikes a good balance between, setting expectations for those who are serving on boards and commissions, with still allowing the freedom to engage as they need to with city staff, the media, and the public.
Boards and commissions are expected to self-enforce the new code of conduct. Scott Rod, KPBS News.
The Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade 2 years ago may be a prelude to what's in store for women's autonomy. KPBS's Amita Sharma reports that if the right-wing policy agenda known as Project 2025 is implemented, women's rights could be rolled back more than a century.
Project 2025 was crafted by the conservative think tank the Heritage Foundation. A hallmark of the document is reviving the 1873 law called the Comstock Act. It bans mailing items that could be used for an abortion. UC Davis law professor Mary Ziegler specializes in the politics of reproduction. She says because all abortions in the U.S. involve the male, this would amount to instituting a national abortion ban. She adds that people may not understand what's at stake because they still believe that extreme outcomes are unlikely to happen.
Until they've happened. I mean, that was true with the overruling of Roe v. Wade. The other thing I think that people don't understand is that this kind of outcome could be engineered without Congress, without voters. It would require control of the executive branch and the federal courts. And that seems achievable, even if American voters don't want it to happen.
An Associated Press poll in June found that 70% of Americans believe abortion should be legal. Ziegler says she's uncertain about what a challenge to the Comstock Act would look like.
We haven't really seen anyone attempt to enforce a 19th century criminal law in the present day. We don't know how successful they'd be or how determined they would be to enforce it, but I think it's safe to assume the consequences would be really serious and kind of hard to imagine, from where we stand now.
Former President Donald Trump has denied he will implement Project 2025 if he wins the presidential election. A CNN report found 140 people who worked in the first Trump administration helped write the plan. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
The AIDS Healthcare Foundation has been a big player in rent control and other ballot measures. Landlords want to stop that with this measure before voters. Cal Matters reporter Ben Christopher explains Prop 34.
There's a prop on this year's ballot that has something to do with spending restrictions on healthcare providers and Medi-Cal negotiations and something called the 340B drug pricing program, but really, it's all about this guy. Let me explain. I'm Ben Christopher, housing reporter with Cal Matters, and this is Prop 34 in a minute. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation is one of the biggest users of a federal discount drug program that gives cheaper medicine to health providers that serve low-income patients. Its CEO is a guy named Michael Weinstein. Weinstein is kind of famous in California political circles, and not because of healthcare. His foundation has bankrolled 3 statewide campaigns to remove limits on rent control, along with a bunch of other controversial issues. All of this has made Weinstein a political enemy of the state's landlord lobby, and now they're funding Prop 34. The initiative says that if you're a health provider using this federal discount drug program, and you spend a lot of money on non-medical things, and you own a lot of apartment buildings, and you have a bunch of code enforcement violations, then you have to spend almost all of your money providing health care. As far as anyone can tell, this would only apply to Weinstein's organization. Supporters say discounts meant to fund health care for poor people should be used for that and not for, say, unrelated political campaigns. Opponents say this is just a political vendetta. So vote yes if you want the AIDS Healthcare Foundation and any similar health providers to spend virtually all of their money on direct patient care. Vote no if you want to leave things the way they are. To learn more about everything on your 2024 ballot, go to calmatters.org. For Cal Matters, I'm Ben Christopher.
And to get more information on all of the local races and measures on your ballot, go to kpbs.org/voterhub. It's time for our next Why It Matters segment with our Public Matters partner, Voice of San Diego. Editor and CEO Scott Lewis explains independent expenditures and how they are shaping the San Diego mayor's race.
Monday at the regular meeting of the San Diego City Council member Marnie Von Wilpert was praising the fire department for its response to a fire near her home when she asked the city clerk to play a YouTube video.
That's my backyard. That's what I saw from my house when I stepped outside my driveway. It was very close to our homes. Next slide, please. And this is the video of what happened. It's very short. That's not the video, that's a commercial. It's okay, we don't have to show it.
What had started playing was that ad for Larry Turner, who's running for mayor.
Smart, honest, tough. Turn San Diego around. Larry Turner, the independent mayor San Diego needs.
Councilmember Von Wilpert does not support Larry Turner. The ads are not from Turner's campaign, though. They're from the Lincoln Club, which has put $800,000 into a fund to support Turner. And that came after a Point Loma attorney gave them $1 million. What they're doing is called an independent expenditure. Mayoral candidates can only raise $2,700 per donor, but independent expenditure committees have no limits. People who do independent expenditures have 2 main rules they must follow. They must say where the money is coming from, and they must not coordinate with the campaigns. If you look at the screenshot of that Turner ad, you'll see that the Lincoln Club says it's from them. It does not have to say the name of the attorney who gave the $1 million because he gave the Lincoln Club the money. The Lincoln Club was legally allowed to spend his donation however its leaders wanted. They just put most of it so far into ads like this. You can watch all this happen through required public disclosures, and when supporters of Mayor Todd Gloria saw what was happening, they quickly raised money into their own independent expenditure effort. Independent expenditures have been around forever, but they're going to play an even bigger role in local politics. 2 years ago, the state passed a law, and it prohibited any member of an elected agency from voting on any issue that would affect any donor who gave $250 or more to their campaigns. We analyzed the data, and it has led to fewer donations to candidates. The money will go through independent expenditures now instead. I'm Scott Lewis, and that's why it matters.
In a country that has never had a woman president, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is known as the most powerful woman in American political history. She spoke in San Diego this week about her new memoir, The Art of Power. KPBS's Amita Sharma caught up with Pelosi to talk about next month's presidential election and America's current divide.
So much is at stake in next month's election that we all have been working very hard to make sure we win. We made a decision to win, to save our democracy, to save free and fair elections, the peaceful transfer of power, the independence of the judiciary. But democracy is also a personal issue, the freedom of women to have control of their reproductive freedom, the freedom of people to read books or LGBTQ, the freedom to, for our children to be safe on the streets from gun violence and the rest. So people think of democracy as the Constitution, and it is, and that's at stake too, because they've said they might even terminate the Constitution. It's a global issue, that is to say it's a big issue, and it's also an individual kitchen table issue for America's working families. So for the character of our country, we must win this election.
And yet polls show Vice President Harris tied with former President Donald Trump. Given the consequences you've just outlined, why isn't the needle moving?
We are not trusting in polls. We are owning the ground. We are mobilizing, getting out every possible vote. That's what we do every day, putting one mobilization day in front of another. We're messaging in a way you can't run on empty. You have to mobilize around a vision, and that vision has to be unifying for our country. Has to be progressive and bold, if you wish, but not menacing, but unifying. And we have to have the money to get that done. So the 3 M's, and the small donors have been so important to that. So we're getting our job done to make sure that we win the election, whatever the polls show. Actually, for as new as Kamala Harris is on the scene, she's doing very well to be tied with a former president of the United States.
Male voters, including Black and Latino men, appear to be supporting Trump again, according to the polls, in wide margins in the 7 swing states with just 3 weeks left until the election. Can Harris win them over?
This is going to be a gender gulf because women understand what is at stake in this election. Women have the most to lose. In terms of, again, women's right to choose is so fundamental as a personal issue and as an economic issue and as a respect issue. But there's also things like affordable child care, family and medical leave paid. The Vice President talked about the other day about home health care for caregivers who are sandwiched in between caring for their children and their seniors. Some of them are men, mostly they are women.
I want to pivot slightly. In your memoir, you recount how your husband, Paul Pelosi, survived a life-threatening attack. The University of San Diego just released the results of a survey that they did of Southern California elected officials. 2/3 of them reported being threatened or harassed. What's the solution here?
When my husband was assaulted, violating the sanctity of our home, in our own home, violently assaulting him a centimeter from losing his life. The other side, the former president and his son and the governor, Republican governor of Virginia and Leon Musk and people like that thought that was really funny. They made a joke of it. When the president was attacked in terms of the assassination attempts, we all sympathized with him. That has no place, one side or the other. But when we're trying to attract so many new people to politics, especially women, but also people of color, just to have the beautiful diversity of America reflected at the table of decision making. We can't have them be afraid for the safety of their families, their children, or themselves.
A majority of Americans say that they are troubled by political violence, about the possibility of political violence. How worried are you?
Well, I think it's something to be worried about. But I do think that as soon as we get through this election, and whoever wins, we will accept the results of the election. We have to have a unifying spirit in our country. We have to try to bring people together. I've served in the Congress where we've had great differences between Democrats and Republicans, but we never had any disrespect for the patriotism or the honor of the other person. And we have to get back to a place like that. I think young people are impatient with all this, and their involvement gives me hope. I think the arts are a place that bring people together. We laugh together, we cry together, we're inspired together. We find common ground, which we never even thought we had.
Speaker Pelosi, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And that was KPBS's Amita Sharma. Residential neighborhoods in Chula Vista could look vastly different under new housing rules the city is studying. iNewsSource reporter Emily Inco has more.
They're called accessory dwelling units, sometimes granny flats. And in Chula Vista, homeowners can build one on their property. Now, the city will research whether to allow 2 detached ADUs. It could help the region's housing crisis and would happen in one of the county's fastest growing cities. Councilmember Alonso Gonzalez was the first to propose the change. He wants to allow the extra ADU without increasing the total number of allowable units on a property.
If we could allow 2 detached ADUs, but cap it at 4 total units, that would be my direction.
But when a change could happen is unknown. For now, the City Council has rejected the proposal, but left the door open to consider the issue again.
I believe that we have the right intentions moving forward, but at this time, I think for the interest of all of us, I think we need to slow this down.
City staff is expected to collect feedback from residents about the possible change. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Emily Inco.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. This story is part of our Public Matters partnership. To find out more, go to kpbs.org/Public Matters.
Some areas are going to see the coldest weather we have seen so far this season as we head into the weekend, and others will see snow in the higher elevations here. So yes, get ready for that. But overall here for tonight, overnight lows will dip into the mid-60s, low clouds particularly near the coast, so it will be a cloudy, even foggy start here for some areas. Across the rest of the area, we'll see a mix of 50s, 60s, and even a mix of 70s here for some areas. But overall, it's going to be a very chilly start here for some areas. But once again, a little bit of cloud coverage developing offshore that'll work its way on. And then as we head into Thursday, yes, cooler air starting to work its way in from central into southern parts of California. So heads up for that. That is going to bring some much cooler air here for some areas. In fact, look at San Diego County's forecast highs for tomorrow. A little bit cloudier there near the coast, but highs will be a mix of low to mid 70s. And then as you get up into the mountainous areas are still going to be in the 60s. Desert areas are going to be in the upper 80s to low 90s. San Diego 70, Oceanside, Camp Pendleton 72 degrees. So future track radar is showing that cloud coverage there off in the distance. But other than that, that's where that snowfall is going to start to fall in the higher elevations. And that's going to last here as we head throughout Friday, Thursday into Friday morning. You can see they're pretty much across a majority of Salt Lake City and parts of Utah. And then after that, here's that big cool down I was talking about. Temperatures about 20 degrees lower than what we have been seeing here for some areas. But overall, that's going to stay more inland. Your coast forecast here for sunny skies. Highs will be in the 70s. We will see a pretty good warm up as we head throughout the weekend. We'll be back in the 80s on Sunday. But look at those morning lows dipping into the 40s. That's going to be a little bit chilly. Inland temperatures will climb back into the 80s here as we head into the weekend. Overnight lows in the 40s. So heads up for that. The mountainous regions will see some near freezing temperatures Saturday morning. So get ready for that. And then watch out for the desert areas. We'll see highs back in the 90s by next week.
So you want to skip the line? Well, you can, but it will cost you. Disney has unveiled a new all-access pass at its parks, allowing you to skip that line. But the Lightning Lane Premier Pass may cost more than the actual park ticket does. The pilot program is being offered in very limited quantities and is priced per person per day based on the date and the demand on that day. At Disneyland in Anaheim, the price for the pass is $400 per day on top of the park day pass. And the supermoon will be super bright. Make sure you look up at the night sky tonight as the moon will be at its brightest for the year and peaking tomorrow. The moon will be appearing just before 6 o'clock tonight in its most brilliant phase just before 4:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. And according to the Old Farmer's Almanac, this will be the hunter's moon and it will be at its closest position to the earth for the year. And here is a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, how Vice President Kamala Harris is trying to persuade Republicans to vote for the Democratic ticket in this November's presidential election. And KPBS Midday Edition is getting ready for the weekend with a preview of all of the best in arts and culture events around San Diego. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.